Hello today. So I am here to talk to you about public boards, but let's set the scene first. You and your team are using Trello, using it to organize projects, share information with clients, hit deadlines, you have roadmaps, and you ship something great. You move that card to the done list, then you copy and paste that card into Slack, and you say, team, look at this great thing that we just shipped. If you have ever thought, man, I really wish that it were this easy to communicate successes to our users, then the next 19 minutes of this talk are for you. Because we can do this. And we can do this with public boards. So what is a public board in Trello? Let's take a look at one. This is the Trello development roadmap. This is a board that Trello maintains. It's a public board, which means anyone on the internet has access to it. So long as you know that URL, you can get this board. And we use this as a way of letting our users know what cool things we've shipped. We throw some images up there, we have some stickers, because it's just a Trello board. Nothing special, nothing fancy, except for it's public. And just like a regular Trello board, you can take a look at a card. It's got attachments, there's stickers, and you can even watch a card to keep updated, to stay updated whenever things change on it. It's a really easy way of letting your users know what you're doing. So how do you make a board public? Let's take a look. In the top of that board menu, next to the team settings, you have a nice little visibility menu. And by default, Trello doesn't make boards public, so you have to go in here and make sure you're picking the correct visibility settings. You've got three options. Private, which means only you and team admins will be able to see and join the board. Team, which means anyone on your Trello team can join the board, collaborate with you. And public. Public means anyone on the internet has access to the content that you have on that board. And Trello is not the only person using public boards to great effect. You saw a couple mentioned by Michael in his keynote, and we're going to dive into a few more. Here's the Slack platform roadmap for developers. This is where they share updates to their platform. They let their users know, hey, what are we working in the short term? What's in the long term? What are some ongoing improvements we're making? I love it's got this nice little delightful background, like very fun, very Slacky. We've got Twitch. I love this board. I love Twitch. Twitch is a video game streaming platform, and it's got this great color to it, but we'll dive into that one a little bit more later on. And we've got Fortnite. If you don't know what Fortnite is, that means you don't hang out with 14 to 25-year-olds who play video games, because this is blowing up. And a really cool story about this, the Fortnite team, they're very small, young and scrappy. They've got millions of players across the world playing online, and all of a sudden they're like, our servers are underwater, users start experiencing lag, everyone gets booted from Fortnite. And if you know any video gamers get a little bit upset when they get booted from games. And Fortnite was like, how do we let our users know that we know that there are problems and we're working as fast as we can to put those fires out? They actually leaned into Trello for a little while as a kind of temporary status page to say, hey, we promise we're doing everything we can to get it back online. So a great way of letting your users know that, hey, we know there are problems. And it's not just big teams or companies that can make public boards. There are tons of great public boards curated and managed by individual Trello users out there. This is one that I found recently. It's a remote job resource board. Someone put in all the hard work of finding who does remote work, what job boards list remote jobs, and compiled it all together into a board and was like, I probably want this for more than just myself. Let me go ahead and make it public. This is a board that we maintain at Trello. It's a very debatable high level of activity board for the New York City office, and it is trying to capture the best slice of pizza in New York. We've got this fun GIF that's kind of nauseating if you stare at it for too long, but a really delightful board. And if you're looking for a good haircut, I maintain a board full of inspiration. May we all be so blessed as to have those beautiful locks that Brad Pitt had in his early 20s. It is rad. So you're asking now, Bentley, this is cool. Why would we do this? Maybe we already have some tools that we're using. You may have a blog already, an email marketing tool. Why would we go to another channel, and this sounds like a lot of work? Well, I think there are 3 great reasons why you should do this. First and foremost, there's no expert needed. If you're making Trello boards, you're already an expert in Trello. That's all you have to do to make a public board. You just continue maintaining the boards that you have. And it's Trello. No logging in, teaching users a new tool, figuring out what this button does, what does that hamburger menu do. It's Trello. You know how to use it. If you're already making cards, you're doing everything that you need to do. And this is my favorite, free SEO. Free SEO is not a pizza. SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. And what this means is when you make a board public, for instance, a board about good-looking haircuts, Trello goes to search engines like Google and says, hey, we just found this really great board full of content about beautiful haircuts called mullets. Search engines like Google say, okay, yeah, we'll hold on to that. That might be useful for us. And so a little bit later on, when a user says, hey, I'm looking for a banging haircut, mullets are the first thing that pops up. So you can piggyback on some of the great brand equity that we have with search engines. For instance, looking at Unreal Engine roadmap, the very top result here is the Trello board that they use to maintain the roadmap. So it's a great way, so long as you have good content, to surface it and have users find it just via the search engines they already use. It's free. All right. Mulled it over, and you want to know how to actually execute. I've got 5 tips on how to make great public boards. First and foremost, make it easy to get started. Like a landing page for a marketing website, you want to engage users immediately. You don't want them to bounce. So you want to make it as easy as possible for them to begin exploring the content that you've curated. And I think Twitch does a wonderful job of this. If you go check out that first card, your eye's drawn to it. You know that this is the legit thing. It's got the logo. The card title is Start Here. Like, you know that's the first thing that a user is going to click on when they visit this board. You open it up. It's got this nice, fun GIF in there. And it gives you some context as to what the board's for, what you should use it for, what expectations you should have as a user. Twitch also has these really nice images attached to the top of each of those other lists. Makes it really clear how to get started, really draws your eye in, and again, it brings in that engagement. And this is my favorite thing. If you make a public board and you have users across the world, you should be doing this. You'll notice they've got this list of useful links, and down in the bottom, there are actually some cards in Dutch and Russian. And it's important to keep in mind, Trello is translated to over 20 languages. So when you change your language, as I've done for my board here, to Russian, Trello knows about the strings that it owns. So here we've got Doski, which is boards. We've got the different privacy settings, menu. Those are all strings that Trello knows about and translates for the user. But the content that you have doesn't get translated by Trello. And so Twitch has actually gone out of their way and said, hey, let's make sure that any user across the world can find this public board useful. And they've added the have questions, click here to send us your questions card in every single language that they have users. And talk about having a wildly large perspective and making sure all of your users are cared for and feel at home. All right, if you're anything like Trello, you have a brand that you've really taken the time to craft, and you have a voice and a tone, and you want that to come through in your public boards. I think Fortnite does a really, really, really good job of this. Fortnite's a video game, and so you come here, and they've got a custom background. Those characters down the bottom right are the Fortnite characters that you know and love if you play the game. You immediately know, oh yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be. And the cool thing is they actually change the characters every so often. And when they do that, they also go in and update their public board with a new background and that new card in the front. That's a really subtle way of letting your users know, like, hey, this is fresh content. This isn't a stale board. We're keeping it up to date. And of course, following best practices, they've got that great getting started card that provides perspective and context and expectations on what the board should be used for. So it's Fortnite. All right, has anyone ever said something out loud that they didn't mean to say out loud. Maybe replied all to an email that you thought was just going to a colleague. You should treat public boards the same way as you treat anything that you're communicating publicly to your users. Measure twice, cut once. And one of the best ways to achieve this is with an internal board that is private, that you use a place to draft and craft your message and cards before you ship them to that public board. I do this for our developer platform. We have a changelog where we let users and developers know about cool things that we're adding to the platform. Here, the team's added an add-on disable capability, and we've used this card as a way of drafting the message, making sure that we've got the ship date and the announce date there. We make sure everything's okay, and once it's ready to go, we can copy it. We open up that copy card menu, and let's say we've had a little bit of back and forth in the comments about some of the wording, making sure we've got the tone and message right, and we actually don't want that to be shared on the public board. Trello gives you the options to keep labels, attachments, or comments, so we usually don't keep the comments and don't have to worry about going in and deleting those. And boom, copy it to our public board. All the same data and content is there. And pro tip, if you're using custom fields, that's what the shipped and announced fields there are. Custom fields is a power-up that lets you add extra metadata to your card. When you copy a card that has custom fields on it to a board that also has custom fields on it, we copy the data over for you. So it's a great way to add that extra context on public boards, because that does show up on public boards. So communication is a two-way street, right? You don't want this to just be a billboard. Wouldn't it be cool if you could actually bring in your users and engage and have them interact with you through Trello? Because using Trello is delightful. That's why you're using it. And you want your users to have that same experience with your public boards. And so there's some great ways that you can do that. Fortnite does this really cool, subtle thing with their labels. They've got the investigating to develop, fixed, but the red one, the need your help. What a cool little call to action to your users just using Trello labels. Your users know, hey, I should go click that, figure out what they need help with, and maybe I can contribute back to this game that I love. Butler does an amazing job of communicating with their users via public board. Butler is an automation power-up and tool for Trello that helps you automate some of those little processes that you have in your life. And they use this public board really as their main marketing site. So there's a lot here, so we'll break it down into individual pieces. But first, a little story. There was a user of Butler that reached out and said, hey, I really enjoy Butler. Can I make a tutorial on it? And because they've turned on commenting on public boards, which is a feature you can do, so anyone can add comments to these cards, someone commented and said, hey, I've got this tutorial. Can you share it? And the maker of Butler said, yeah, definitely. Created a card for it on his board. Another user comes in and says, hey, I took this course and I loved it. You have users of a product communicating and having a community inside of comments on a public Trello card. Like, that is mind-blowing. No need for any tool. Like, it's all happening right here in Trello. And look, you've got those emoji reactions, really letting other users say, I agree, that is a delightful course. So back to the main board. Knowing that Butler is probably going to be, or that this board's going to be the highest ranking Google search term for Butler, Trello, Power Up, they've said, let's make sure that we have the content that we want our users to know about first and foremost. We've got the logo about this board, a little system status there, so we've got some of that status page check coming in. Praise for ButlerBot. We've got instructions and documentation. No need for another tool to make your users dig through. It's right here in cards. We've got an FAQ, so you can see that there are common questions and answers. And because commenting is turned on for public boards, the maker of Butler can actually use this as their support tool. They don't need a ticketing system. Users can come here and ask questions. They're notified in Trello, and the conversation can stay all within Trello. Look, there's one card with 75 people live, real-time, getting questions answered by the people that maintain this board. We've got example boards. We've got a little thumbs up there. I wonder what that's from, he says in a not-so-subtle transition. Integrate, extend, and automate. If you find yourself copying and pasting stuff back and forth all the time, you're not making use of the incredible integrations and power-ups that exist on Trello. The one that allows for that little thumbs up is called the voting power-up. When you enable that on a board, and particularly a public board, you can let users give you a thumbs up on the things that they're excited about. What a great way to take a product brainstorming session and figuring out, hey, what do our users actually want? Let's just let them answer for themselves. Zapier is a tool that is dangerously powerful because of the number of things that it integrates with. I use it internally for that changelog. I found myself copying, pasting messages from our public board into our Slack community channel, where I let developers know, as another channel, what's going on. And so I put together a Zap that listens. So here I am crafting my internal changelog message, get it together, I copy it, saw this earlier, okay, it's live. Zapier will listen for this card, and once it hits it, it'll post it into the Slack community for me. No more copying and pasting and trying to make it look good. Zapier does my job for me. Bot logo there, and we've got users able to add emoji reactions, start threads, and ask questions. And so you can imagine all of the tools that Zapier integrates with, which of those can you go ahead and put together with a public board? Maybe it's a tweet. Maybe it's an Instagram post. You can do all sorts of things if you just automate a little bit. So quick review. 5 things that you should do when making a public board. Make it easy to get started. Provide clear, obvious context for your users to engage. Bring your brand. Be delightful. Provide that color and visual stimulation that your users expect. Measure twice, cut once. Don't say anything out loud that you don't want the internet to know about. Communication is a two-way street. Don't just be a billboard. Let your users interact with you. Give them a chance to give you some data and feedback. And then integrate, extend, and automate. Go enable power-ups. They do some really freaking cool things. But be remiss if I didn't say, with great power comes great responsibility. So Trello Responsibly. Only make content public that you intend for the entire world to have access to. So with that, go forth, make public boards. Thank you.